one of the coolest and most obscure root vegetables that I know of. Today we're going to talk about parsley root, and I'll show you a few different things that I like to make with it. This is a vegetable that was known really in the Middle Ages, probably developed around the 1600s by an ingenious person in Germany, and it's still used in some recipes in Eastern Europe. Most of the time, this is going to be a traditional soup vegetable, and you would have seen it in a recipe like that. That's the carrot family soup from my book. This is also used in a number of different borscht recipes. So, anything with root vegetables is someplace you can use it, and it has a taste that's kind of like parsnip crossed with carrot, crossed with celeriac. Really, really cool, and a strong parsley flavor, of course. So, what you're going to do, much more pronounced kind of woody core, where parsley roots are much more slender and basically just like a white carrot, but with a very different flavor. So, recipes, probably the easiest thing to make is I'll just roast the roots with some carrots. The carrots add a nice little pop of color and texture, and it's interesting to taste the flavors side by side. And this is basically my favorite carrot recipe, is just simply roasted in the oven at high heat, cooled and cut into pieces. And the key here is that we want to just scrub the roots, just use a little dish scrubby. And if you bought them through like a restaurant wholesaler, they're probably going to be very clean, but you want to make sure to scrub them and not peel them, because the skin here, kind of just like celery root, is one of the best parts. And once they're roasted, you're just going to cook them at about 400 until they look like that. Pierce them with a knife, and when they're nice and tender, they're ready. Take them out. I season them with a little bit of oil and salt. And then I'm going to cut them kind of on the oblique. This is my favorite way to cut carrots, where we just rotate the root after it's cooked. And I will mention here that whenever I do this with carrots or any other root like this, I always make sure to cook a little bit extra, because they're just great as a snack. I eat them straight out of the fridge. And once they're all roasted and cooled down, you can toss them in a bowl with some herbs. I just have a little parsley and some chives. Super simple here. Add a little bit of oil, pinch of salt, adjust the seasoning. But very, very simple. Just mix them together. These can be warm, they can be room temperature, they can be hot, they can be cool. Put them on a plate. This is a great side dish, or I know plenty of chefs that will serve them as an appetizer, typically with some kind of herb sauce or a sauce made from carrot greens. This is, just a basic salsa verde. Next, parsley root puree. So this is kind of a velvety, smooth puree of roots, and I make this with celery root, parsnips, all kinds of different things, carrots, beets, but just look how smooth and creamy this is. So this is great, kind of as a substitute for a starch on a plate or things like that. Particularly good with different proteins. So you don't have to peel the roots, but if your roots are dirty, you might want to peel them. It's also going to make sure that you have a nice, bright white color, but you don't necessarily have to peel them. You just cut the roots into pieces. Super easy. And then put them in a small saucepan, and we're going to add some heavy cream. Super simple, basically like 3 ingredients here. Top them with a little piece of parchment, bring that to a simmer, and then we're going to cook it until the roots are very tender and most of the liquid has been absorbed. And now we just put this into a high-speed blender. You can see there's not a lot left in there. Just get all of that into the blender. And then while it's pureeing, I'm going to add, a pinch of salt and a little knob of butter. And you can see we're pureeing it. I'm making sure to use the tamper attachment to kind of lessen the friction on the blades. And I may add a little bit of extra butter or a tiny drizzle of oil or another splash of cream. And we're just going to puree this until it is absolutely, velvet. Super, super smooth. Then I'll take that really velvety smooth puree, put that into a pot, and that's how you can serve it. You can also use this to flavor mashed potatoes instead of cream and milk. That's a really nice way to stretch it. But I'll just put it onto the plate. This is some deckle steak that I cooked, and I just warmed it up in a little bit of my ramp leaf butter. And a tiny bit of sauce here is such a nice complement to anything that you're going to serve the puree on. And just look at that. Doesn't that look great? I love how that looks. I love the contrast of the white with any kind of sauce that it goes with. I've served this with quail in the past. I mean, any kind of protein, but it's particularly good with seared sea scallops and fish. Now, a simple soup. This is a great way to serve it in small amounts to kind of introduce people to the flavor. It's really simple. And for this, I'm not going to peel the roots. I'm just going to scrub them. We're going to cut them into nice little thin coins. Very similar to how we're going to make the puree, except we're going to add a few other vegetables. Start off with a little bit of butter. I just have some leek and onion. You could add a little bit of shallot. You can add a little bit of celery. Now we just add our scrubbed and sliced roots. A little bit of chicken stock or vegetable broth. You want a nice light colored stock here. You wouldn't want to use mushroom stock or something like that because that's going to change the color. You want it perfectly, crisp and white. Let's cook those until they're tender. And put it in a blender. Add some cream. And I'll mention that I make this ahead of time and I reheat it because it's going to taste better. You can obviously put the cream in the pot and warm that up. And to make sure that we get it super velvety smooth, I will make sure to use the tamper attachment, just like the puree. I might drizzle in a little bit of oil just to lower the friction and kind of fluff it up. That's a secret to making vegetable purees. Now, once it's done, put that into the pot. We will adjust the consistency, adjust the seasoning. If it is a little bit loose, we'll cook it down. If it's a little bit thick, we'll add a splash of chicken stock or some cream. Make sure it tastes good. And then just put it into a bowl. It doesn't really need much, but a little bit of colored oil or maybe some sauteed mushrooms or something is a really nice garnish. Very, very simple. Very good way to use that root. There you go. Just a few different ways I like to serve parsley root. Really cool root vegetable if you can find some, or if you want a cool new root to grow. All the recipes are linked in the video description and are on my website. Thanks for watching.